I tell you though, I need more wine in here. Fill it all the way up. Fill it all the way up. No, I'm not kidding. After today, um, but we'll get into
Yeah, it's been a rough day. Hey, everybody, we're just joining with Jason Corpus Christi. Jason, I'll just let you take it right away because I think the title of the stream is pretty self-explanatory. But pretty rough one, huh?
Yeah, it's been one of those interesting days. But yeah, first, oh my God. Uh, anyway, no, this day. Okay, anyone who's been following our saga knows that we've been kind of battling part shortages, and in fact I just did the chapter the end of Tube World as we know it. We've been managing them pretty well. The problem is today, actually, one of them snuck up on us and really actually did become an issue. It was one that we've planned for. We have orders in. We've been sitting and waiting for these orders since last May. That's not a typo. Last May. They just pushed out the deadline again till November, and these are for the analog devices, ADSP, digital signal processors. These are used in every multi-bit DAC from the multi-bit card all the way up to Iggy. So, finding out that, well, we're not going to be getting any shipments until November, and we're kind of constrained on the number of ones we have, in process. It's not a great day, especially when, after looking around, there are really no alternatives. There's no drop-in parts. We can't redesign quickly. This is a real pain in the ass, just to be totally frank. No getting around it. That said, what does that mean? That means that the Modi multi-bit and the multi-bit card that you put in Jotunheim and stuff like that are going to go on hold for a little bit. Hopefully till November. We'll see. If everything ships and delivers in November, great. If it doesn't, we don't know. We will continue with Bifrost. We will continue with Yggdrasil. We will continue with at least a partial run of Gungnir. Bifrost and Iggy should be, no worse than they ever have been as far as availability. I know that it's not saying much. I get it. But we are going to be making those, and we're actually expanding production in the case of both of those products. So it came down to priorities. In fact, we had two new products teed up to use these DSPs, and probably unsurprisingly, they were the Modi Multibit 2 with Unison and the True Multibit Unison card that goes in the various modular products. Those are going to be on hold. Those were what we were going to be shipping when they came back into stock. Right now, they're on hold. Hopefully November is the resolution date. If not, I'm sure Mike and Dave are going to be having a lot of fun tonight, redesigning a whole bunch of stuff to see if we can put TI parts in it. But that's not just dropping in a new part. That's new code, new production processes, new everything that, betting whether that's going to beat November for delivery or not, don't know. I don't know which horse is going to win, but we always are very proactive in figuring out how to get things done and work it through. So I'm not worried, and I'm not worried about the company in general because we make a lot of different products. We can take a little haircut on a couple of the DAC, the inexpensive multi-bit DAC products for a while. Won't kill us. Doesn't make me happy. I wanted to tell you guys about new products. Heck, I wanted to bring home a Modi Multibit 2 and show you because we have exactly two of them, based on hand-assembled prototypes. It even has USB-C on it. Yeah, I know. Don't get too excited. We are joining the 21st century here.
Next thing you know, you'll be telling us there's going to be DSD in it.
Oh man, let's not go too crazy. No, it's like, but if you can't make fun of yourself, I mean, you have to be able to do that. It's been an interesting year. it looks like it's going to get a little more interesting. We had a joke today that Saga S should be called the Saga Revenant because it's been resurrected so many times. It keeps selling so well that it's like, okay, we'll make some more. It's like, oh, we got parts to make, we'll make more. So this year, don't be surprised if Saga S hangs around a lot longer than you thought, or we're kind of making what we can make. I believe, and I know. Oh God, wait a sec. I believe that we have visibility on all of our like single source pain in the ass parts, and it looks like the DSPs are the only ones that really kind of bit us. That could change, but I do believe that we're in decent shape. Analog side, I'm actually better than Mike, so don't be surprised if I'm helping him out a little bit too, much to his chagrin. So anyway, that's what's going on. Just another day in paradise.
How is the wine this time? What are you drinking this time?
This is a William Chris Vineyards 2017 Tanat. So it's a Texas wine. They grow this one on their estate in Hill Country in Hye, Texas, HYE, and it is actually quite good. Texas wine to me, it's kind of reminiscent of going back to San Ynez circa 1995 or so. There's the fun wines, the flavored wines and the sweet wines and stuff like that. And then there's some people that are super serious about it. The super serious guys, William Chris and some of the others, are really good. They're producing some great wine. But of course, California, they won't believe that. And in fact, some of my Texan friends are like, "You drink Texas wine? What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "You're from Texas." And they're like, "Yeah, but the wine's crap." I'm like, "Whatever." So I'm going to send them some wine and we'll see what they say. But
So
I figured I'd represent, Texas.
there you go.
I'm here. Yeah.
Does I hate to diverge for the sake of our audience right now, but I did get a chance to go to Temecula last weekend.
Uh-oh.
I'm changing my opinion of both the wine and the experience there because it has grown immensely.
Really?
And the wine wasn't nearly as bad as I remember. So I'm just saying, who knows that I talk a lot of smack about Temecula. I'm slowly changing my mind now that I had to visit again.
Well, to be frank, if you can grow, grapes in Texas, which, oh my God, it probably makes Temecula look like a paradise. It's, it's fairly amazing. In fact, I was at another Texas winery, small digression, called Slate Mill Wine Collective, which was really funny because I'm like, oh, the collective thing's kind of funny. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, collective, like communism. And he's like, I don't understand. I mean, the guy's like just blank. I don't get it. And I'm like, you don't, and I'm like, whatever, it's fine. You didn't get it. But anyway, Slate Mill Wine Collective, they have a bunch of vines up front. It looks really pretty. It looks like a California vineyard. And I'm like, what are those and what do you actually grow and do you make wine out of it? And he says, oh, that's Cabernet. I'm like, wait. It's Cabernet Sauvignon you're growing in Hill Country in Texas. And he's like, yes. And I said, and you make wine out of this? He's like, yes. And I'm like, and it's good? He's like, yeah, it's way better than our Tempranillo this year. And I'm like, I'd expect the Tempranillo to be a lot better. That's a hot weather grape. And I'm like, fine, pour me a glass. He poured me a glass, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this is actually a really good Cabernet from Texas in a place where you wouldn't expect them to grow Cabernet grapes. So I've been surprised. So Temecula, okay, if Temecula is going good for you guys. It's like I would love to actually go to Temecula and have some great wine. There you go.
So the state of the worldwide tube, which I think you kind of described as the end of the tube world as we know it? Question mark.
Question. Yeah.
Point thing to point out there. What, from your opinion? And I'm actually really interested to know because from my perspective, it could go either direction. It could never, it could be terrible. It could
Yeah.
be okay. I mean, I'm really interested to hear what you have because we didn't talk about it beforehand. So I really don't know what you're going to say.
Here's the thing. Even if nothing changed in the world, we still would be looking at alternatives to tubes because we can't get enough. We've had standing orders in with JJ and with tongue saw and with electroharmonics, and we just can't get enough. That's been one of the big problems with keeping up with Freya production, is getting enough tubes. And so even before anything happened, it was problematic. And right now, I don't know. I mean, right now we got this kind of cryptic email from Electroharmonics today saying, hey, the shipping of tubes situation has been resolved. I'm like, I don't know what resolved means, but they're taking new orders and apparently shipping more tubes. I'm like, that's good. Still doesn't really change our overall plan of we need to actually have something besides just crossing our fingers and waiting for tubes to show up as a strategy. So I don't know. It's actually evolved even since the chapter I did last Friday. It may be better. It may be the same. What I do know is that we have huge stockpiles of tubes for Valhalla, for the upcoming Folkvanger, things like that. We don't have a lot of 6SN7 type tubes, and that's where the pain hits. And so that's why you're going to see us doing some products with different tubes, or we have a version of the Freya that uses the 9-pin tubes, Novel tubes. They are much more gettable, and more importantly, we have 20,000 or so of them. That'll get us down the road quite a bit. And you'll be seeing us limit production on, say, Folkvanger. We were probably going to build like 1,000 or 1,500 of them. We're probably going to build 500 of them now because we do need to conserve and see what we got. In terms of the larger geopolitical thing, yeah, I do understand that tube shortage is beyond a first world problem. I mean, there's lots of other problems in this world, and there's not a lot I can do about that. I can just address how it affects us. And in fact, we've had some customers asking hey, can I not have Russian tubes in this product? And I'm like, well, in the case of Freya, it's kind of crapshoot. And in the case of Valhalla, well, that's what we got. I get it. I understand. I do understand this is something we could be worrying about other things. But I do need to just let everyone know what's going on with us. It's kind of a compulsion. We are transparent. We try to be as transparent as possible, and this is part of what's going on with us. And so that's why I talk about it.
Yeah.
Did that help a bit?
It's very clear in my mind now. What should we go? Did you have anything more you want to talk on the subject? We got a lot of questions fired up for this one, and we got some
yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing I can say is, for right now, I mean, if you're buying tube products from us, you don't worry about the supply of tubes. Right now, we're well set on everything that we need. We have shut down ordering of just random tubes off of our site, but if you're an owner of a shit product and you need tubes, we will take care of you. We're in good shape on that, and we have years of supply, in most cases. So if you want a tube product, you can still get a tube product. If that changes your mind and you're going, maybe not a Freya Plus, but a Freya S, I get it. I totally get that too. In fact, I use a Freya S. So it's all valid. And in the future, we will have alternatives. We are bringing back List for sure. That's already in process and well along. That's probably, with any luck, it'll hit in a couple months. And List is our solid state tube, for people who aren't familiar with it. That will let us put something in Freya and ship it with something that will always work, and it's basically a depletion MOSFET in a can kind of thing. It's not a tube, but actually some people like them better than tubes. So great, good. That's a reason to celebrate if that's what you're into. Um, I actually used to like them in the old Lear 3 quite a bit. So, or sorry, the current Lear 3 and the old list, the Novel list in Lear 2, I thought was actually the best application for it. Someone did actually, I know, and someone did actually ask about like list for Valley. And so we can hit that first question, which is there are no plans to do a Novel list or 9-pin list. It would be an 8-pin only. The reason for that is we actually have a good stock of Novel tubes. Valley is well supplied. Valley only uses one tube, and it's I think that we're good there. Um, Plus, to be honest, it's a lot harder one to make. The ones that actually go into an 8-pin can, they're physically larger, and we actually have a lot more room to play with. So they don't get as hot. They're easier to build. People like doing them better. So that's why we will be bringing back an octal or 8-pin list that will go in Freya and Saga and Lear and a bunch of other stuff.
The second question the first thing we got in here is a Vidar with a standby power button.
Yep.
Because I think the reason for that is there's a standby power button for the Asier, but not the Vidar. Is that correct?
I'd love to see that too. Yeah. And in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if, sometime soon we actually go and put them in the same chassis, and actually add that to the Vidar. Don't be surprised if there's a little bump in Vidar price at that time, though. We are still under large, price pressure, and it doesn't seem to be going away. So who knows? I get it. I'd like to do it. I don't have a time frame for it, but if it happened this year, I wouldn't be all that surprised.
The second question here goes back to our tube conversation, and that is, do you have any comments on Brymar's Great British Valve Project? Have you heard of that before?
Yeah, actually, I hadn't heard of it, but I looked into it once I read that question, and I'm like, ooh, that's actually pretty cool. Unfortunately, it's not super clear what valves or tubes they're going to be making. It does look like Brymar currently offers a 6SN7, probably rebranded from someone else at this point in time. But if they wanted to make a 6SN7, I would love to talk to them. I'd love to place a large order for a whole lot of them, because to be honest, we're hurting. I mean, you go to almost any tube manufacturers and you tell them you want 10 or 12,000 6SN7s, and their eyes just kind of cross and they look at you like, well, we can do that in 3 years or so. And I'm like, no, we need that for 3 months. And they're like, wait a minute, what the heck's going on? It makes me actually want to make a product that it just runs solid state until you plug tubes in it. Don't hold me to that. That's probably Fantasy Island stuff. But that it is getting to the point where we are consuming the world market in some tubes. The guitar guys will always have us, the 12AX7s and the power tubes and stuff like that. But 6SN7s are they appear to be a peculiar audiophile thing, and we're chewing up a lot of them.
Is there anything in the works for a more powerful 8?
Yeah, I've thought about that too. It's really funny. Okay, here's the problem. We currently have, I think, the only stereophile Class A rated, amp that's under like $1 billion. I exaggerate slightly. But,
Slightly.
That's not that's $799, and I'm like, should I try to employ some of the tricks we learned in Jotunheim with Continuity S and get the power up, but then. Is it the same? Well, is it the same amp? Well, the stereophile it won't be. They'd have to re-review it. Don't know how that would go. Tier is coming out, and Tier should hit before the end of this month. And so, yeah, I know Tier's a lot more expensive, but it is not a lot more expensive than say, well, it's twice as much as two Azures. I don't know. Let me think about that. But there are no prototypes in the works. I can say, but it's been thought about.
So the new one, the new amp that you're referring to, it's going to be a solid state, but it's not. Would you say it's an extension of the Asier, or is it a totally different, like a totally different way of thinking?
If Azure and Ragnarok had a baby, that's kind of what Tier is, but with a lot more power.
Hmm.
We're still finalizing the ratings. I mean, I need to test like 10 or 15 of them off the line to get the average. But it's going to be at least eight. It's going to be at least 200 watts into eight, and probably 350 into four. It's a mono block amp. They're probably going to be 15.99 each, and people are probably going to go, "Wait a minute, you said 14.99." Yes, I said 14.99 probably in the year 1993 or so, or at least that's how it feels these days. Um, it's prices have gone up a bit. The choke and the transformer both got a decent bump, so we're doing a small bump on the price. So $3,200 ish, rounding up a pair, for a completely insane power amplifier.
Any chance? These are questions we get every week, but or every time we do this. Any chance for a streamer? I feel like I got to answer this one for you. a, a
Yeah.
Bifrost 2 streamer that's balanced, or just a streamer with no DAC?
Yeah, basically no. Anything that needs an app to control it is probably not us. Um, it's really funny because we had a discussion about an app controlled product lately, and one of the reasons we killed it was it would need to be app controlled. It's That is an approach for some people. It's not our approach. We want to do things that are simple to use, simple to update, and actually don't require us becoming essentially a de facto software manufacturer. So yeah, you're probably not going to see a streamer. You're probably not going to see anything like that. You're going to see a bunch of very bizarre stuff this year, but not a streamer.
Um, how about this one? This one's a good one, I think, teed up. It has been answered in previous ones, but I feel like it's worth revisiting. And that's someone asked about the three versions of the Yggdrasil.
Yes.
How does one decide which version is the best for her system? Can you give us some sort of guidance on the sound attributes of each person? Perhaps add this to the product page for customers.
Yeah, it's actually long been our approach that we do not comment on sound. In fact, if you go through our entire website, you'll not be able to find any reference to what something sounds like. And that might be a, a bit of a surprise to some people because we're an audio company, right? We should be saying, oh, the more you spend, the more you get, and the better it sounds, and the more velvety and wonderful, and ear caressing, and visions of unicorn inducing it is. But we don't. We leave that to reviewers, and there have actually been some really good comparative reviews of all three versions of Iggy, and I'd refer you to those. The thing is, it really comes down to what you prefer. In one of the reviews, Mike and Dave very much liked one. There was another reviewer I know who liked a different one, and I was the only person who liked what we called the more is less version. So asking my opinion about sound might not be the best idea. I appear to have a strange ear.
This one is hot on all three platforms. Question asked every time, but let's address it again for fun.
Yeah.
Stack transport. I think of all the done this, Jason. This is the one product that people talk about most.
I get it. I think I responded to someone today on Headfine and said, that's a Mike question. We both have our parts problems. I need to focus on mine, which was my less than polite way of saying, I really don't know. I know that there are, prototypes running around, quite a few of them. I know that they've had, some fairly minor firmware issues. It appears to be getting close. But a product of that complexity, I don't know when it's going to happen. Probably best to poke Mike and see if you get an answer. I know right now he may be very distracted, given that the ADSP products are on constraint, or basically it's less on constraint and more analog devices has discovered or has basically disappeared from the market in some cases. Um, our production manager Alex Martin, I think, in an email to one of our suppliers said, I really hope that Analog Devices gets into the funeral business so they can actually disappoint me one more time when I finally die. It's really getting bad. I mean, we haven't been able to get their DACs like forever, and now the DSP parts. It's like, okay, so I guess you want us to go over to TI, which is not impossible, but doesn't make anyone real happy here. We would much rather continue with Analog Devices. If anyone from Analog Devices is watching this podcast, we'd love to continue with you guys. Parts have been great, et cetera. But hey, we actually need to ship things. It's kind of weird. It's this manufacturing thing. You make things, you ship things, you get money. You make more things, ship more things. That if you can't make things, then it kind of doesn't work.
Oh, sorry if you just addressed this in that comment, but I was reading through some of the questions coming up. And did you address any updates with the AKG chips from Japan in that?
Oh, AKM. Oh, those ones. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Someone wrote AKG. You're right. AKM. AKG. Some.
We
Uh-oh.
just lost the camera here. Hold on.
High action this time, folks.
Oh boy, yes.
There we go. No, that's money. Good recovery.
Yeah. Okay, that's actually a great question. AKM has supposedly resurfaced. Oh man. All right. You know what? This is getting a little crazy. I have this thing kind of propped up on a box. It's not doing as well as I thought it was going to do. Hold on a second. There we go. All that excitement. AKM has resurfaced. They said we have parts for you. We have the 4490 and the 4493, both the ones we were using, which is great news. They have said that by, I think, end of Q2, they're going to be shipping them. We'll see. What I do know is, yes, we're getting samples. They are not the same part. They are, pin for pin compatible, but the part number is different and the specs are slightly different. So, we'll have to play with them and see what we think. I would not be surprised if eventually there was a Modi, a Modi Thunderdome, Modi E versus, Modi A, ESS versus AKM, for real, as in two of them enter and only one of them comes out. And we would probably make, a couple thousand each, send them out to people, see what they think, and the best one wins. AKM has advantages, ESS has advantages. Some people like AKM, some people like ESS. Kind of shockingly, I think I prefer the ESS implementations to the AKM. But we'll see. Their new chips, they might sound different. And I'd love to see what they sound like. I know that we have, like I said, I know we have samples coming in, things are happening, and I'll be able to report on that more. But for right now, our products are going to be 100% ESS. Anything that's coming, whether it's Modi or Modius or Hell or Fulla, it's all ESS. Actually, let me clarify too. Despite the limitation in the ADSP chips, we will not be doing an ESS or AKM version of the Iggy, Gunyer, or Bifrost. Just, so everyone knows.
I got a question about, for those that aren't aware, the Los Angeles shitter doing a live stream. It's because Jason is currently spending his time between Corpus Christi, Texas, and Los Angeles area here, Newhall. Someone's asking, how are things going in Texas after you have any kind of response to what it's like for the Texas situation after having spent some time there now?
Oh, I absolutely love Texas. I spend the majority of my time here now. That doesn't mean I don't love Valencia. In fact, I'm heading back next week. But I do love Texas. It has been the least painful part of all the craziness. We got the Texas shop up and running very easily. People are great. We moved everything that uses a wall wart or is USB powered to Texas, relatively painlessly, which has freed up Valencia to go and do like the more complex stuff. So, but it's a different ball game. I mean, you go to you go to California where we are, which is north of LA, and what do? You go out hiking because there's mountains and trails and stuff like that. You might go to Magic Mountain, if you're into stuff like that. You might go up to Castaic Lake and and fish or whatever, or you go out to the coast. You drive hour and a half out to Ventura or Carpinteria, things like that. Um, Everything it's California, so everything is blindingly expensive. And since it's inland, it's super hot in the summer and kind of cold in the winter. Corpus Christi is totally different. Corpus Christi is very much kind of a strange cross between like a Texas town and beach slash surf town. There's a lot of things to do on the water. Uh, a mountain, what is that? They don't, hell, trees. I mean, what the heck is a tree almost? So it's a different ball game. I've always liked, living at the beach and on the beach, at the coast. So this is great. This is a natural for me. I mean, it's great. I can walk to the beach, 5 minutes, and I can go swimming every day. I can, do bodyboarding. I can do stand-up paddleboarding. All the stupid things that old guys do. I can do. Food is great. People are fun. And about 3 hours north, there's wine. So essentially, that's Fredericksburg. Or if it was me, I'd just keep going up 37. Hit Johnson City. Not kidding. That's its name. Think Lyndon B. Johnson. And then actually go essentially east towards High. There's a bunch of really, really good wineries along that route. So we're still kind of getting our bearings here, but I like the state, like the people, like what you can do. Do I wish there was hiking and mountains and stuff? Sure, but we can drive to that if we need to. It's weird. Yeah, we drive inland here and we drive to the coast in California, so it's not that much different, or totally different. One of the two.
Is there any chance of an Austin shitter? There's a retail establishment that we do these live streams from in Newhall, downtown Newhall. What about one?
Still looking at that, but there's every chance. This year, it's such a disorganized bag of crap. Yeah, to be totally frank, that we got other things to worry about. Next year, when things settle down, absolutely, I'd love to actually do something in Austin. And I do understand that Denise is working with some other companies to put together not a shit show, but a small audio show in Austin. So you will see that this year, for sure. And eventually we'll probably do a real shit show. And you know what, Brian? When I'm back in California, we could actually do a SchittrMeet, like an actual in-person SchittrMeet if we felt like it.
Always a fun time. Always good to see everyone else. All the people who come out. It's such a good crowd. There's such a good fan base. Really, really cool to see.
I'm up for it. I have no problem. I think it'd be good if people are feeling safe and want to come out. It's like I'd say come. We'll set up a date. We'll work with Denise, set up a date, and we'll have a little get together. At the shitter.
There's a very interesting question that came in I want to ask, even though it's kind of one of your run of the mill. Would you ever consider this? But this one's stands out a little bit. Would you ever consider design / dongle DAC for smartphones without headphone jacks?
Without? Oh, yes.
Typical. They make these audiophile like the Audio Quest has one.
Yes.
And there's a couple brands that have a little dongle.
Yeah, I would absolutely consider it. I know that Mike and Dave have been working on something like forever. Ever since we did Follow, they're like, hey, let's do something even less expensive. It's like a dongle. So yeah, I would. It's definitely under consideration. If we could hit that this year, it would be wonderful. Um, I know that there's some new parts, coming from C Media that would actually be really good for that. But yeah, that's a possibility. And I do know someone else asked about a active crossover
Oh
in
yeah.
in a Freya size chassis. Um, in general, no. Yeah, as in I don't have a plan for that. Um, that said, given the success of Loki Max, I could be convinced that might actually be kind of interesting. Um, I've it, it does, it requires a certain dedication to have a bunch of amps and to actually have an active crossover and things like and a speaker specific to that, which is why I hesitate. But Sumo used to make an active crossover called the Delilah. It actually went with a subwoofer called Samson. So Samson and Delilah. Now you know where I get some of these stupid name ideas from. They also had a tuner named Charlie, and if you don't get that one, you have to say it as Charlie the Tuner, which actually might date me as far as how old I am because Brian ain't laughing. Um, it's an old commercial. Anyway,
I'm
the
distracted. I'm sorry, Jason, I'm distracted. The new product for the phone should be called the shit dongle, or someone wrote shit dongle, but then someone else wrote, "Don't you think dingle is a little more appropriate?"
the the code name for the original Fola was the Dingleberry. Um, yeah, that was when Fola was like tiny, tiny though. Yeah, I get it. It's you know, but there's a lot of kind of like we'll see products, and yeah, I do think that we're probably going to surprise you this year on a couple of things. I'm sorry, I won't talk about them because you know I do actually think they're kind of interesting strategically, and I think when we release them, a lot of people in the industry will probably go, God, why didn't I do that? But I could be fooling myself. I've I've fooled myself a lot. It could be nothing, but I've been currently using one of these products for about 6 months now in various iterations. Just gave a couple of them to our to actually Tyler and Alex who head up finance and operations, and they're like, "Oh my God, these things are great." I'm like, "Uh huh." Yeah, it's like I can't live without them now, and so we'll see. But I may be crazy. I've been crazy a lot.
I got a kind of a two-parter for this next one.
Hmm?
You've talked about in the past the phono preamp and how noise is a really big issue.
Yes.
Someone asked, and this product does exist. Would you ever consider a tube-based phono preamp? Part to that question is how difficult of a task given the budget constraints that you work with, because the phono ones I typically are in the tens of thousands of dollars. So
Wow, that
that
much?
product you can, yeah, oh
Hmm.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because ironically, on my shelf in Valencia, I have a tube-based phono pre that Mike designed, and it's old school phono pre, like with passive network. So it's essentially like it's like a oh, it's like a Manny writ large. It has tube input, passive and passive network, and then tube output. So it actually uses four tubes, and it uses some very low noise. I think the Russian copies of the Western Electric 417s. They're neat. It's neat tubes. It's neat preamp. It does not do moving coil
Mm.
levels. You'd actually need a pre for that because you are getting down into real scary tube levels there. You can do it, but it's very very heroic. So that's a long-winded way of saying we've considered it, we've played with it, we've kind of shelved it for now, um, because it does. If we do it, it's like you have to use this kind of tube. It is designed for this specific kind of tube, and it might be so specific. It's like you can only use JJECC88,
Mm.
or whatever it is, and you can't use anything else, or it won't work right. The RIAA network will be, off. It also won't have the flexibility in terms of gain, the Manny or Manny 2 do. We could have all the loading options you want. I had no idea that they were that expensive. Who knows? I have no great desire to make, 5-figure products, but if we could do something, for $1,000 or $1,200, that was really fantastic. Sure, I'd consider it. It's not on the docket right now. I know the one that Mike made would probably about a $600 product.
Well, I'm not saying they're all that price. I'm just saying it's something you in the ultra high end of 2-channel more, just because people love and adore the tube, the idea of tubes so much more that they're like, I want it everywhere. I want it too. There's $10,000 solid states out there as well, but I think that I tend to see more in that arena. I'm sure. So to dig it up, there might be one that's much less expensive, but an interesting idea. Do you think that adding a tube into the line at that point would add some interesting character to it, or do you prefer your tubes at the pre or the power stage?
I think if you're going to worship at the altar of measurement, the tubes in that application are going to be way noisier. They're going to be a lot more variable. I think they could sound really good, personally. That said, there's other things we could do a discrete, a solid state. We can do it. We can do a lot of kind of funky stuff if we feel like it. I know that someone was saying, "Hey, it'd be great if Manny 2 had adjustments on the front panel." It's like, yeah, that would be fantastic. I understand. I get it. It'd be great if it had more adjustments. It'd be we could do things not only like that. We could probably even do almost an automatic setup. If we wanted to go crazy with microprocessor control. We've thought about all that, and right now, again, it's on the shelf. Even with us managing our parts difficulties, there's going to be a reasonable amount of redesign coming, just because we use some old parts. We have to design out like all the little parts that run our oh God, what is it, the volume pots, the motorized volume pots. All those parts are now obsolete, so those all have to get designed out. We use a lot of motorized pots. I'm like, oh, that's great. That's something we got to do. Microprocessors seem to be okay for now, but it might be smart for us to move to some smaller ones and other applications. So we have a lot of stuff to do. That said, yeah, a higher end phono, whether it's tube or solid state, is something that's been batted around a lot. I would not be surprised if we did something there. I doubt if it's going to be this year.
When you think about next generation for a product, do you feel like that you have an ultimate goal of a sound that you're trying to reach when you do that? Or is it usually for something product specific, saying, is it a lot of times to adjust for supply of parts?
It's usually not for supply of parts. And in fact, I have a note here. There's a industry part sourcing site called Octopart, where you can actually type in a part number and it'll tell you what's available and what's not available. I have never had to use that site ever until this year. This year it is now, it's essentially the Bible. I mean, you actually go and put the part in there, you go, it looks like those are not gettable because there are either none in distribution or very few, or, the lead time's quoted at 84 weeks or whatever. And so you don't design that in. Or, you hit a shortage and you need to find something that's there. I never had to do that before. So it's never been a factor. This year, it's still not really a factor because, like I said, we're managing it. The main goal is usually to make a much better and more transparent product than we've had in the past. And better can be simply feature set or power, and rather than sound quality. And we do have some kind of killer features coming, I think, especially in light of some of the stuff happening these days with shortages. Um, but yeah, a lot of it is just to be quite honest, it's improving the product in terms of feature set, power, specs, or for us, it's playing. It sounds stupid, right? We play with things. Well, we play with things a lot. I play with a lot of new ideas. Um, a lot of them don't happen, and then every once in a while, one of them does. So, uh, I will actually take a current product and I'll go, how can I improve this? Let's play with this. Um, a good example is Magni. Magni has actually gone through 20 some odd revisions that never made it to production. Since we actually introduced Magni 3 Plus and Heresy, I've probably done over a dozen versions just alone, just kind of going, I wonder, is this better? Is this better? Is this better? Is this better? And then we go and listen to them and we say, is this better? Is this worse? Does it have any fatal flaws? We actually had a fantastic Magni candidate that just had one fatal flaw, which was its DC performance was pretty horrible. Which means when you switched it from low to high gain, it would the DC would change radically. So that had to be not pursued. So I play with things a lot. That's part of the thing. Usually it's though I'm trying to get more power, better performance, or a more interesting or complete feature set on the product.
One of the things that a lot of artists talk about is they like to apply restraints to themselves in order to be more creative. If you have the whole wide world at your disposal, it can be sort of an overly complex situation, doesn't always bear the best product. Do you yourself find that you like to design within the restraints of the lower budget product, or is it more fun, more entertaining to do something as cost no object? This is the best sound I ultimately.
I think both Mike and I enjoy the low budget projects. Yeah, because it's like we don't know what we're gonna do. We don't know what the constraints are going to actually be until we do it. I've been surprised. I mean, Magni 3 Plus, it's like a no constraints amp. I mean, if you actually designed a no constraints headphone power amp, it's called Magni 3. Except okay, maybe it might have a big giant transformer in it rather than a wall wart hanging off the wall. But I mean, it is a no constraints amp. So I like the lower cost stuff because you might surprise yourself. You may actually be able to do a lot more than you expect. Um, that said, yeah, once you actually get up into higher cost, you got to start balancing. Am I putting the money into the circuit, or am I putting the money into the chassis? Um, right now with chassis costs going up a lot, we got to really watch that. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know about spending a ton of money extra on a chassis. I'd much rather get smart about how you make it so it still looks great, but it's inexpensive to make, and let's put the money in the circuit.
We're at about 48 minutes here. Anything else you kind of want to add it? I think we've covered a lot of the questions that have came in. There is one kind of a roundup question someone had asked about. He said, "I'm here for the big boy amps." We had talked about the amps already. Have you commented on all of the kind of the upcoming big amps that are coming on the way?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say Tier is our Ragnarok. If you're talking big boy in terms of like much more power output, I don't think we're really going to go there. I don't think shockingly enough, I don't think power output is our ultimate goal into speakers. I think it's more quality. Um, the tier is probably going to be powerful enough for most everything. But if you need or want like 1,000 watts and 8 ohms, I don't think that's us. Um, tier I think is our ultimate big boy. Iggy is our ultimate big boy. On the DAC side, it's kind of like that. That said, there's gonna, like I said, there's gonna be a couple surprises of like kind of new products that don't quite fit into easy categories this year, and they'll start on the inexpensive side of things, but they can scale up a lot, and we'll see where that leads us.
One more just came in, a little more on the generic side. What discrete parts versus OP part or OP amp?
Yeah, I would rather do discrete. I think there's a lot more opportunity to work with discrete. And in fact, I'll have an upcoming chapter on essentially the history of Magni through measurements to actually kind of shine some light on where you can go with discretes and how they have measured through the past, because actually there's been kind of like, I think there's this accepted thing of like, oh, Magni's never measured all that great until recently, which is incorrect. Magni Uber actually, believe it or not, was the best measuring Magni ever. Magni 2 Uber. A little bit short of Magni Heresy, but not much. And
Right.
and that's discrete, and that's with low loop gain. With higher loop gain, we could better Heresy. So, if I can merge both Magnis into one in the future, one discrete Magni that actually measures like a Heresy but is discrete, that's where we're going. That's a lot more interesting than putting TI's latest OPA, product in a box. No offense to TI, they're doing some, incredible stuff. But I'd much rather, play around on the discrete side. Maybe I'm crazy, but then again, we do tubes too. I mean, you can't expect, us to be completely serious about everything, can you?
Considered any doing any device collaborations with other audio manufacturers? I'm not really sure why
Device.
you'd want to do that. Do you know of any examples of people doing that aside from the mass drop stuff in this arena? I'm not.
Well, we did the Jotunheim R for Raw and
Oh
Jotunheim
yeah.
A for Odyssey. Other things like that. Sure, we'd absolutely consider that. Especially, I mean, right now, I mean, to be frank, analog parts are a lot easier to get than digital side. So, I got lots of analog ideas. If anyone wants to marry them up with a headphone, I'd be very happy.
What
So there
about
you go.
what about speakers? You ever think of going to that?
Oh, it's funny. I actually had an editor of a very big audio magazine say, hey, I dreamt that you guys were doing speakers. Is that any truth to that? I'm like, no. I can confidently say that you'll never see a shit branded speaker. And he's like, oh, I recognize that marketing doublespeak of we'll never see a shit branded speaker. I'm like, yeah, well, let me just tell you straight out, there's nothing in the works. There are no plans. Um, you know, if we did something, it would be under a different brand, and we'd actually have to hire someone to do that, because I am not the expert in speaker design. I wouldn't rule that out, because I believe there are opportunities in the current speaker market that are underserved, but it's not going to be me, and it's not going to be shit. So that's about all I can say about that.
This one's a little more, but I kind of like it. What's your philosophy on how much feedback to add to the circuit?
It's a great question, actually. As little as possible, in general. In some cases, that might be zero. In very, very specific, constrained cases, it might be what you would call no feedback, which is still kind of not really no. I mean, you're probably going to be using, degeneration to, or local feedback to linearize the local stages. Um, but what they're usually talking about is no overall feedback, no feedback from the output stage back to the
Mm-hmm.
input. In some cases, you can get away with that. In the case of, say, like actually Folkvanger in high gain, there's no overall feedback. Don't get too excited because that's probably only going to be for headphones that are 300, 600 ohms, stuff like that. You're probably going to need low gain, which has some feedback in any other case. That said, that's a super interesting question because if you actually look at, say, the op amps out there that have 120, 150 dB open loop gain, they're going to need 110 to 140 dB feedback to actually, get it down to say 10 dB gain for a high gain application for headphones. Let's just say that's a lot of feedback. I would prefer not to use that. That would not be my thing. A Magni 3 Plus, by example, has about 30 dB of feedback. Its loop gain is a lot lower. It's really funny. With 30 dB of feedback, it's within 10 dB in performance of these amps that have 120 to 150 dB feedback.
Mm.
Yeah, that does actually, kind of make your eyebrows go up, doesn't it? It means that those amps based on op amps are extremely nonlinear open loop because they have so much feedback and because the devices are not as good as you can do discretely. So that's why I like to do discrete. That's why I like to keep the open loop feedback down. What I'd like to do is typically I will shoot for when things are open loop, it's wide bandwidth, it's at least audio bandwidth. And when you close the loop, you use as little feedback as possible. 20, 30, 40, dB-ish, to get what you need. Typically, we do need to use some feedback to actually get the kind of performance we need, especially for speakers. If you want to have low output impedance and stuff, it's either lots and lots and lots of devices. And, we're talking, early Krell, 64 output devices for 50 watts, kind of thing. Or you're going to throw some feedback in there to get the output impedance down. So it's a balance. I'd love to be a purist and say, yeah, no feedback on anything, but I'm sorry, I can't do that. Not on $100 amplifiers. If it was a $10,000 amplifier that I could use 320 output devices on, okay, hey, maybe we're talking, but again, that's not us. We don't make 5-figure products. I don't see us making 5-figure products, unless a Big Mac ends up costing $25, and who knows? I don't, I don't know where we're going to be at that point.
There's two questions about a digital output.
Mm-hmm.
So USB in, usually like a simple DAC configuration with a analog out. Plans to incorporate a digital out, either coax or other, from that ever?
No, we don't have any plans currently for any kind of D to D converter,
Right.
or digital converter, either in Modi or any other product at this point in time.
The other questions mostly revolve around colors and current supply to some colors, alternative colors to some products. You want to just kind of maybe on the last comment here, you wrap up your thoughts. The color scheme is what it is in general for all the products that shit.
Okay, so shit started with just silver, and for a really simple reason. I like silver. That's basically it. There were no other, bit of intelligence other than I like silver, so we're going to do silver. I always loved the Theta silver products. I was irritated that Sumo never did silver products, so we did silver. The problem is with silver is as soon as it's scratched or as soon as it has a problem, it's absolute junk. You can't refinish it. You can't fix it. It does not work anymore. And so we ended up with metal manufacturers that said, "Hey, we have a lot of junk silver. What do you want us to do with it?" And that's what started us saying, "Hey, why don't you paint it black? We'll do a kind of special edition black because people have been asking us for black forever." That's how black started. A lot of people ended up liking black. And in fact, right now, black outsells silver by about 2 or 3 to 1. We're rapidly becoming a black is standard and silver is a special finish type of company. That said, at this point in time, we're going to be doing black and silver. Silver will be constrained from time to time. Silver is harder to make. Silver is especially hard to make now that essentially some of the really kind of perfect mill finish metal has gone away. So you'll see silver. It's going to cost more. It may be constrained. It's probably going to go out of stock more often. And very importantly, silver is not a natural. It is not a sprayed finish. It is a natural finish. It is grained aluminum. That means it varies. Silver does not necessarily match 100% of the time. Sometimes it's a little more grainy, sometimes a little less grainy, sometimes it's a little yellow, sometimes it's a little white, sometimes it's silver. We have never been able to actually fix those problems, no matter what manufacturer we go to, no matter what anodizer we go to, no matter anything. Hence, when people ask about finish, I say it's real simple. You want it to match, you want it right now, you got black. For silver, you love silver, might want to wait, get silver. We had a meeting recently where everyone was saying, well, we have 800 SKUs, stock keeping units that we ship. And you're like, wait a minute, you guys only have like 25, 30 products. I get 800. Well, it's real simple. 2 finishes, 4 different, cord configurations, 2 different voltages, different cards, etc. It gets real big in a big hurry. And I said, I know how to reduce that to 400 right away. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, get rid of silver. 400, right there, done. So, despite loving silver, despite everything on my desk being silver, if I need to make the decision of getting rid of silver, silver is going, not black. We have not figured out a sprayable silver that actually works. That includes Cerakote, that includes everything else. Plus, just the feedback we got over trying to improve the knob by putting a notch in it rather than a dot, and going to a blasted finish rather than a polished finish, kind of makes me not want to change things. If anything goes away, it'll be silver. Black is safe. So if you like silver, I'd say expect to pay a little bit more. Probably expect to wait a little bit more. I don't think I'm going to do anything as draconian as getting rid of it, but believe me, I've had thoughts, and it really pains me because I love silver. So there you go. That's what we got.
At least one of your products has had another type of color, though. We had red on maybe 1 or 2 products. If you can do black, is there any chance that you might do an off color or something like that for a small run or something?
Maybe. A red bottom, the Heresy, the Full, and the Hell are all red bottoms, which kind of put them in a special class of product. That may or may not continue. We may go to gray, but we'll see. Like I said, I don't have a huge appetite for change when we're changing everything. And I know Alex and Tyler have talked about doing some special edition, colors. And I've encouraged them to do so. It's just right now, when every day you're like, oh boy, what's coming now? It's less exciting to think about things like that.
I'm still waiting for my Yggdrasil.
Yeah, and that can be done. I don't know if you want to know the price for it.
Well, I
I
think that.
mean,
Go ahead.
we had a conversation with their stamper. He's like, we can stamp gold. He says you will have to pay for the guards, because we can get sheet gold and then we can stamp it, but then you have to have people standing and picking up all the pieces that get stamped out. I'm like, yeah, that's good. We won't be doing that.
Would be pretty. It would be pretty.
Oh, it'd be hilarious. There were actually discussions about doing the Willy Wonka, gold magni. Just randomly ship out a gold top
Randomly?
magni. Oh yeah, no, and I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. That's hilarious. And I said, gold plate it, and they're like, no, solid gold. I'm like, no, that will not be happening. But don't be surprised if sometime a gold plated magni actually makes it out of the building, and you're invited to fly out for a tour. No chocolate river. You don't want our chocolate river. Just saying. Um, but yeah, see.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Oh, not the
Well,
chocolate.
no, I just we'll see what happens.
Well, on that note, Chase, what you
Hmm.
want to add before we kind of wrap up the stream here?
No, I think I probably broke everyone with that one.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us, and cheers, Jason from Texas.
Cool. And yeah, I'll go write the chapter now on what we're doing.